You're listening to the Footy First podcast on TSN 1050. Champions live here.
That's right, folks. It's Saturday. That means one thing and one thing only here on TSN 1050. It is time for Footy First. Nick McVicar, joined today by Sergio Camargo, one of my favorite co-hosts. I only have two, so I got to say one of. But no, man, I love having you on the show. How you doing today?
Good, man. Good. It's I'm happy Nico's not here. We can get to know each other a bit better.
Yeah.
Nico and I grew up knowing each other, so I'm sick of him. We can start blossoming our friendship a bit without him here.
Yeah, and it took me a while to realize this, but little unknown fact about us is that we actually played against each other, you and me, back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I didn't know that.
Only for one or two games at most, but we did play against each other at one point. So
because I didn't know you're also a 94, right?
No, I'm a year younger, so I'm a 95.
Oh, okay.
But I used to get called up by the Oakville teams. Well, no, there was two Oakville teams in the same level, so they just needed players. They would just call up from the year younger. So yeah,
don't be humble. Don't be humble.
I'm always humble. I knew I was a solid player, nothing flashy.
Yeah.
Wasn't going to catch a lot of coaches' eyes, but one of those guys you need on the pitch. So I played all 11 positions too, which doesn't happen.
What was your
very
best
often.
though? What's your pitch to your coach that your best position is?
Today or back then?
Back then.
Back then, my main position was center defensive mid, with my backup being out and out striker.
Okay, so like a Bakari role then for Vancouver FC.
Yeah, and I've been. That was one thing I was going to bring up to you at some point in the show. I've been thoroughly impressed with the flexibility of that roster in Vancouver. They've got players playing all over the place. I don't even know what to expect day to day from their lineup.
You use the word impressed. I use the word confused.
Both.
It's in my opinion, seeing that doesn't bode too much confidence in my team. I would like a team that has set roles and set players for each role. And it's tough asking a player to do 3 different roles throughout a game. Mentally, you get ready for one aspect of a game. You try to score a goal, or you try to keep a clean sheet, or you try to control the midfield.
Yep.
And I mean, props to Bakari for doing it, but I wouldn't want to be on a team that's consistently asking players to play out of position.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess so. I grew up, and I just said, like, I played everywhere on the pitch. I was all 10 positions in the outfield, and I was the backup keeper for my team. There was one game I played 7 positions in the same game. Like, it was ridiculous. I don't expect anyone to do that at the professional level, because if you can, like, you're probably just an insane superstar. But
well, also that means you're also playing on a team that's lacking in so many positions. It's not a knock against Bakari. It's a knock against the rest of his team. That's what I'm saying.
And I wonder if right now it's injuries, because I know Vancouver has dealt with a few injuries, so they've got a few guys kind of bouncing around positions. But I've also been impressed that all of these guys have been able to just step into those roles, and you're getting some younger players coming in. Obviously, TJ Tahid had a great game last night. He picks up a goal and now holds the CPL record for youngest goal scorer. But that team is, despite all these guys moving around like crazy, they're still playing pretty well. And, I mean, you take out last night's game, they've played 7 other matches. They've only given up 9 goals, which isn't bad for a team that doesn't seem to have a consistent lineup.
And if you take out another match that they let in 5 goals, that's
4 goals in 6 games.
4 goals in 6 games. Yeah, maybe you can make a convincing argument that they have a stingy defense, but I think teams now, and it's a difference between how we try to attack, how Calgary try to attack, and how Pacific and Athletic Ottawa try to attack. And I'll even bring Forge 0-0 tie against Vancouver.
Yep.
It was more of a patient build-up. It allowed Vancouver to get into their set blocks and allowed them to set up their block shots and clearances.
Yeah.
And instead, Pacific and Ottawa just broke from their end to the other end in less than 5 seconds. And I think 4 goals in 10 minutes Pacific scored to blow out that game last night. all using that same strategy. Just like whenever we get the ball, just bomb on. It's
Absolutely.
not long balls, but just sprinting forward.
Yeah, it's counterattacking and getting guys towards the attacking third. The more guys that they can get in the attacking third Pacific, the more dangerous they've shown to be. But you mentioned the stingy defense, and I was curious about this because I wanted to see if we take out the worst game from every team, because you know what's going to happen. There's going to be a game where your team just forgets how to play defense. You'll give up 2, 3, 4, 5, or in Vancouver's case, 6 goals against in your worst game of the season. I was curious. Vancouver's the only team, if you take their worst game out, that has more than 1 goal against per game in the CPL. All the other teams are below a goal against. I think that's really impressive. And I went through it all. I can read them out to you. But I was thoroughly impressed with the fact that defense has seemed to be the biggest sticking point for all the clubs this year.
Yeah, I think that's the building block of where all coaches in the CPL start from. If we can get a good defensive structure that allows us to get the ball more and then control the game. I don't know if this means that we're becoming a better league or a worse league in terms of attack. Maybe the defense is getting better these years, and that means in the next couple of years we'll have to bring attackers in that can break through these defensive structures. So it could be a benefit for the league in the long run, but hopefully the goals start coming, because I mean that's what fans come into the stadiums to watch, right? Those goals being scored and that entertainment factor. And
I mean, Pacific's doing their job. They've scored 14 goals in 3 games, and I had to take out 3 of their goals against other teams because that's how efficient they've been going forward.
Yeah, no, they are the ones doing the job right now. They are scoring goals. They look lethal in attack. Yep. And can we shift over to another thing, another topic, because I think we're going to come back to CPL later on in the show.
Yeah.
Something that's been exciting me and my whole team. It's been in the locker room the whole week or since Thursday when it started. But the soccer tournament, going down in North Carolina, that's one of the coolest concepts I've seen in a long time to kind of revolutionize soccer and bring a bigger crowd to soccer in North America. Yeah. It's a worldwide thing. There's teams from, I think, Mexico, England, where else?
Italy, Germany.
Germany, yeah.
Wales, technically, because of Wrexham.
With Wrexham, yeah.
Canada has a team
and Canada. So let me read out to you the Canada roster, because I mean this is a high consistency of Toronto-based players here.
Yeah.
So the team is called SLCFC. It stands for Sports League Canada, which is the premier adult soccer league in the Greater Toronto Area.
Yep.
And the roster consists of some of the best talent from the Canadian futsal national team and League One Ontario. And if you're asking me, creating a 7v7 team with futsal players is one of the smartest things you can do. These guys are crafty. They don't need a lot of space, and they can find goals easily.
Yeah, so before you read off the roster, just to make everyone aware of what the soccer tournament is, it's a 7v7 tournament being held in North Carolina. You mentioned the teams from all over the world. I just want to make sure everyone knows it's 7v7. It is not 11v11.
7v7, cash prize of $1 million goes to the winner. Winner takes all. It's a target score. So it's 2 20-minute halves, and at the end of the second half, whatever team is leading, you add 1 to their score, and that's the target score.
That's the target.
For example, if someone's winning 3-1 and the game ends, the next it's whoever gets to 4 first.
Yeah, so it's like an Elam ending in basketball.
Exactly. And that's where they got the idea from. So this has worked incredible for drama in this tournament, and there's been no lack of it so far, and it's only going to get better in the knockout stages. So for the Canadian team, names that you guys might know: Abdallah El-Chanti, Damian Graham, Daniel Chamale, Daniel Gogarty, who played in the CPL a couple years ago for York.
Yep. Emmanuel
Zambazi, Philip Zendelik, Jared Phillips, who's an OG GTA player and used to play for Atletico Ottawa. Joe DiChiara was on the roster but didn't make it. I wonder if he's going to fly out on the weekend, so this morning,
Maybe.
to play for the knockout rounds. John Smits, Josh Kahn, Kai Martin, Lorenzo Redwood is the coach. Do you know any of these players or coaches?
I know
Nick?
a few of them, not
personally. Nothing personally.
I know one of them personally, but not well enough that I could like just text them out of the blue. I just know them from playing.
Yeah, and the only ones that I know personally are Phillips and DiChiara. And then Mario Kovacic, he's a legend. Yeah,
Kovacic, I know.
For Vanazuri, for UFT. Mihai Hodu, Omar Marzouk, Raheem Rose, Sami Sabaduka, Vitaly Timofenko, and Yaroslav Maliborski. So shout out to those players. I mean, if I was playing in a tournament in North Carolina, I would have wanted my home nation to know about it. Yep. So like this is awesome, and they play in the round of 16 game today at 3 Eastern time.
No, the quarterfinals. So round of 16 was last night, wasn't it?
Okay, then quarterfinal. Yeah, you're right. They beat Mo Ali FC, like that famous social media guy who goes to professional teams and practices with them. So very cool stuff. Does not lack drama. I urge everyone to try and watch. They're playing Blade and Grass FC. Breck Shea's on it.
Yeah, there's some big names, former players, even current players that are kind of kicking around. And I mean, one name I also have to give a shout out: Canadian legend Dwayne D'Azerio. You got to shout him out anytime he's playing. But no, it's cool to see a Canadian
team. He scored a silky goal.
He did. Yeah, he looked really good.
He scored a silky goal and did his signature. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, his shake and bake. His wave.
The wings. Yeah, I thought it was when I was growing up. I thought he was doing like a bird flap.
I did too.
but I think people are calling it the shake and bake. So I don't think it had anything to do with the bird. I'm not sure.
Interesting.
Maybe
I've never heard it called a shake and bake, but we got to get him on. We'll ask him live one time. That's the goal. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, no, it's been an entertaining tournament. I personally haven't been able to watch any of the matches live, but I've watched a lot of the highlights back when I've gotten some time. And it's really entertaining. Hopefully they can keep growing it because the company that runs it also runs the basketball tournament, and that's their big thing is the basketball tournament. Yeah. This is the first time they're doing a soccer one, and so far it looks like it's having a lot of success. So I wouldn't be shocked if this becomes maybe a yearly thing where we can see these 7-on-7 tournaments happening, and maybe they move it around this year, North Carolina, maybe next year we're looking at like a California-based one or something like that. Maybe it ends up in Europe as well. Like we could see this becoming a huge endeavor for, I can't remember what the company's name is though. Whoever runs this tournament, it could be a huge thing for them moving forward.
And it's not the soccer tournament. It's a different company that runs.
Yeah, because it runs both the soccer tournament and the basketball tournament. So.
And how long has the basketball tournament? Because I've known about TBT for a while, but how long have they been running?
Off the top of my head, I don't know for sure. I don't want to give false information. It's been a few years at least, though, right? Like I don't. Yeah. I'd rather say that and be safe than give you guys bad information.
People love it. And pro players go out to watch it whenever they can. Like throughout the week, I'm like, I wish I was retired this week so I could go to this tournament and try to win. Like I know off the top of my head, I'm not going to say who, but the 7 that I picked to go to this tournament and win it all. You just got to get players that have just retired and are still a little bit fit and just are willing to run around and get all these old men, old retired ex-soccer players.
Okay, I got to ask, is friend of the show Nick Ledgerwood one of those guys who you would invite on the 7-on-7 tournament?
He is.
Yeah.
I might just leave him alone in our half and attack with 4.
You get Drew Becky too. There you go. There's your 2 defense. Done.
No thanks. No thanks.
Hey, friend of the show too. He's been on multiple times. I got to give Becky the shout out. But no, it's been an entertaining tournament too. And before we go to break, one thing I want to quickly bring up as well. It's not really game related, but York United released their Pride kit this week. And I'm a kit head. You guys know that. Mm-hmm. Nico doesn't really care about kits. I was going to ask you how much you care about kits. But I want to give a shout out to York because I think they did a really, really good job with this kit. I find most of the time, and for such a big initiative as Pride is, most of the time Pride kits or Pride jerseys in any sport are usually horrific. They just change the logo colors to the pride flag, and that's all they do. They don't really do a whole lot with them. I mean, NHL, they just use them as pregame warm-up jerseys, and they're a black jersey with the pride colored logo. That's all it is. York actually made a kit. They went and found something that they could put on a kit that represented a specific part of the region, and they did a really good job with it. So I wanted to give a shout out to York for that, because I'm a big kit head, and when something represents where you're from, where this team is, I think it's always a good thing. So that's my 2 cents. I wanted to put that out there.
No, and deservedly so. I was looking on Twitter this weekend, and when I saw it, I'm like, man, York does it again. They have 3 really cool kits.
Yep.
The kit that they wore against us, I'm like, that's one of my favorite kits that they've ever had. Like that contrast between green and blue.
Yeah.
And then the Pride one that I saw online this week, I'm like, they did it again.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even expecting it, so I was just scrolling. I'm like, oh, cool, because we've never had a Pride.
Well, it's the thing. I don't
kit.
think I've ever seen a Pride kit in the CPL. I think this is the first one across the league, and it's a great initiative. And I know they're doing it. It might be partially just for a money grab, and I understand that. That's pro sports. I'm not going to argue that. But the fact that they made a real kit and they didn't just pride flag the logo or whatever, that's what made it a difference for me, and that's why I was very impressed with it. So. Yeah. Anyways, we got to take a break here. On the other side, we're going to get into some MLS and CPL from this past week and some of the big storylines surrounding that. You're listening to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Welcome back to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Nick McVicar, Sergio Camargo holding it down. And Serge, I think it's time to get into some of the action from this past week, because we've talked, the soccer tournament, we've talked jerseys, we've talked impressive defensive play from the CPL. But let's get into the MLS story from this past week. And all 3 Canadian teams did pick up a win this past week, so that's always a good thing. The problem is
where
that,
do you want to start?
I was going to say, the problem is that all of them played 2 games and they only picked up 1 win. But, let's start with TFC, because I think they had the most entertaining week, crazy week.
Well, 100% they did. The storyline was building to that DC game like no other.
And it's funny, because me and Nico talked on the Thursday last week, because we pre-recorded the show. Friday it comes out that Bernadeschi is going to be benched, not played at all in the match against DC. So everything's up in the air. We were talking in our group chat saying, this could be a massive, turning point or sinking point for Bob Bradley. That, it was...
Exactly, yeah. For Bob Bradley.
Go big or go home sort of thing. And they come out...
Kudos to him. I mean, you need some cojones to sit Bernadeschi and hope and be confident that your team is going to perform.
Yeah. And
lucky enough for him, he had Insigne firing on all cylinders that game.
Yep.
He finally looked like the Insigne that I think a lot of TFC fans were hoping to get from the very beginning. It's one of those things that it comes with time, and Insigne's had a bad history of injury since he's been here these last couple of months. But hopefully with him and now Bernadeschi back in the lineup in the second game against Chicago, you start seeing things like you saw at the end of last season that we thought were going to come in straight away into this season, and we're TFC was going to see happy days from the very beginning,
which just has not been the case.
But
the funny thing is, you see that game against DC, and they looked great. I know they gave up a goal, but I thought they looked really strong in that match. And then you have the midweek match against Chicago, where they were clearly the better side. I think we can both agree on that. But man, the finishing was just horrendous.
It was very, very bad. I think the expected goals, let me just look at this.
It was 1.84 for TFC and 1.38, I believe, for Chicago.
Okay.
0.38 for Chicago. My bad.
Okay, I was going to say, my app had it at way lower for Chicago.
It's 0.38. My apologies. But
for me, that's something that Bob Bradley goes into the locker room and says, guys, this is what we've been working towards in terms of performance. And another day, the ball goes into the back of the net because we have the stars like Insigne, Bernadeschi to put those balls in the net.
Yeah. And I think... No, go ahead.
Just our main striker, Kerr, wasn't on his day. On another day, he finishes those chances. Even the one that that TFC stole off of the goalie, it looked like how do we not see a goal from that? It's one of those days that you take it off to bad luck.
That's all it is.
And you move on from there. Yeah, you build from that performance and not the result.
Yeah, and that's all it is. It was unfortunate in front of the net. That's what it comes down to, because they really didn't give up anything. I think Sean Johnson made one decent save. I wouldn't say it was
deflection, right?
Yeah, it wasn't like 10 bells incredible save, but it was a decent save. And it was a necessary save. But man, like you get the goalie out because of injury, and that was a scary moment there. And thankfully, he was able to return to the bench after getting stitches. So, all things considered, I'm glad he's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the main goalie's out, and in the second half, it felt like nothing was going on target.
And those are the most dangerous games, especially with the season that TFC's having.
Yeah.
If you're not putting the goals in, then that one chance that Chicago Fire has, usually in this season, the way that the storyline's going for TFC, it goes in.
In the 94th minute.
Isn't making that save. Exactly. So, and I mean, I can't stop comparing their performance to Cavs. That's just what I think that we've been experiencing a lot.
The difference is you guys haven't been losing those close games. You've been tying most of them.
We've been tying them. Exactly. Except for our last game against freaking York.
Yeah, but that was...
But we'll come back to that.
Yeah, we'll get into that one in the next segment. But at the same time, I was impressed with TFC this week. Mm-hmm. But it's really sad. It's sad times when we're saying that DeAndre Kerr is the number one striker. I don't think... If that's the case... There's some serious question marks about this roster.
Yeah, I agree.
That's all it is.
We can't challenge for we can't expect TFC to challenge for a trophy with Kerr as our main guy.
No.
And even Ayo, in my opinion, I think we need someone else.
I think Ayo can be a number one. I don't think he's there yet. That's the problem, right?
Yeah, but we've been saying that for years now. He's been at TFC for years now, and it's like, okay, this is the year Ayo breaks out. This is the year Ayo breaks out, and he consistently plays to below the standard that we think he's going to break out to.
Fair, that's fair. But I mean, with Sapong in the mix, Ayo in the mix, there's no way Kerr should be the number one. Mm-hmm. Can we agree on that?
Agreed.
There.
Agreed.
So but it's positive signs after a very poor week last week. Positive signs for TFC this week. Montreal also went one win, one draw last week, picking up their win against Miami and drawing the aforementioned DC United. Kind of just a normal week for Montreal. Nothing special really in this one for me. Is there something that kind of jumped out to you though?
No, I think I'm not sure what our predictions were. I chose Montreal for the Miami game. But that was an expected win at home against a Miami team that is sitting bottom of the table right now.
They were tied with TFC, weren't they?
Yeah, at the point. And then their second game against DC United. DC is a very good home team. They play very good at home. They battle, and then they usually get their goals in the 70th plus minute, and then they hold on for a win. Maybe the crux for DC this week was that they scored 2 goals too early.
Yeah,
and they're not used to holding these leads.
It's hard. It's hard to hold a lead that long, so I can't really blame them.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. If you don't have the players that are able to play under that pressure and break through the lines when a team is high pressing to get a goal back, then it's going to be tough to hold on to that lead for.
Exactly.
I'm not sure when they scored their second goal, but a long time. A whole half is a long time. And then Montreal finally breaks through in I think the 80th minute, and then they score again.
Yeah.
So good on Montreal for having that fighting spirit. The goals were a little fortunate still, in my opinion. I think DC was still controlling the game, but that's how teams get it done.
And that's what it comes down to. And I've been very impressed with Montreal over the last month and a half or so. They really turned their season around after that horrific start. And they're starting to look like a team that can compete in the Eastern Conference. I think that right now they're sitting in 10th in the East, 2 points back of a playoff spot, if I'm right, maybe 1 point back. I can't remember off the top of my head. They're
I
right
think it's
there.
1 point.
They're right there. This isn't like a team that, like, TFC is further back. Like, they have a lot more teams to go
Not
over.
far back.
They're 3 spots back, but they're 4 or 5 points back, right? You have to get past that many more teams to get into a playoff spot. Montreal's 1 point, maybe 2 back right now. Like, they're 1 game from getting into a playoff spot at the moment. So it shows a difference.
What team, if you had to pick Montreal or TFC to sneak in at number 9, but you would pick Montreal in terms of making a run in the playoffs to sneak into at number 9 and then making a run in the playoffs?
Yeah, because I've been more impressed with their defense since the beginning of the season. They've really locked it down. Whereas TFC, I don't know what to expect from TFC's defense from game to game. Like, this week they looked really good. The week before they looked horrendous, right? Like, I just don't know. So
no, that's fair. And in playoffs, defense is one of the most, if not the most important thing. So
defense wins championships.
That's a fair answer. I can't argue with that. I would still pick TFC just for that spark and that creativity that they may bring in playoffs. I'm not saying they would, but it's just for entertainment factor.
It's almost a coin flip, but if I'm ever going to be in a coin flip situation, I'll take the team I trust more defensively.
Yeah, fair.
That's usually where it comes down to come playoff time. So, speaking of a team that you question a little bit defensively, but not really. Let's go to Vancouver. Their week, they won 1, they lost 1. They lost 3-1 to St. Louis, which isn't a surprise because St. Louis, the surprise team of the season, continues to be a surprise team of the season. And then they go out and win 6-2 against Houston. And they score both halves within the first 20 seconds. Like, that's incredible to me, to score 2 goals in the first 20 seconds of each half. It's like, okay, what are we doing here? How is this possible? There was 4 goals in this match. It was 2-2 after the 15th minute.
Houston players still going through customs, I guess. But
it was 2-2. Like, it was tied after 15 minutes, right? Both teams forgot how to play defense. The attacking players got through customs, no problem. The defensive players were still kind of hidden.
They checked in some suspicious materials and they were held up for sure.
Yeah, they were stuck on their own line, it felt like, and they couldn't do anything about it. So it was a really weird game midweek. It was obviously a big win, but Vancouver continues just to prod along. They're sitting 6th in the West right now. This is a team that I had fighting for a playoff spot going into the season. They're really, really impressing me so far this year with their ability to continue to press forward.
For sure. Their attack, for me, there's no question mark that they can be a very dangerous attack going forward.
Yeah.
What I question is if they can keep it up, and if I think at the end of the season they won't be in a comfortable playoff spot. They'll be fighting for those last spots come 2 or 3 match days left.
Agreed.
And that's just the way Vancouver operates. So they've never been in my recollection of their MLS history. They've never been in a secure playoff spot for, let's say, a quarter of the season. So that's what we've come to expect, and I think that's what we're going to get again this season. And mainly because they have such a poor away record. So if they can consistently keep their home record the way they are, because I think they've won the most games in the MLS since
at home,
like for 2 years at home. So if they can keep that, for sure, they'll be in a playoff spot for the rest of the season. But it's difficult if you're not picking up points away, and that's something that they need to improve on. St. Louis, for sure, maybe you're not expecting a point or 3 points there, but against teams that are in the middle of the pack and below them, they need to start picking up points there.
Agreed. And that's going to be what it comes down to in the end. And that's why, like, going into the season, I said they were fighting for a playoff spot they might just miss, right? But they'll be in that last spot. I've been impressed because they've been in a playoff spot most of the season so far. They haven't been outside of the top 8. Like, it's just one of those things, right? I'm just impressed so far. So good on them.
And they're fun to watch.
And they're fun to watch. And you know what? I hope Ali Ahmed can come back because he's had a great start to his season. Again, scary injury last week. Hopefully he returns soon. But they've been impressive. The young guys have really stepped up. And the attack is really good so far. So hopefully we can see more of them moving forward.
Yeah.
We got one more break here. Or we got to take a break here, not one more. We got to take a break here. On the other side, we're going to get into some CPL action because there's been a lot that's happened in that regard as well. You're listening to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Welcome back to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Nick McVicar, Sergio Camargo holding it down. Serge, we've done MLS now. We've covered that. Now let's get into the CPL because there was a ton of games. We did 12 matches last week in predictions. I think that's the most we've ever done across 2 seasons in predictions ever. So it was a lot of games. And there were some entertaining storylines coming out of the CPL. And let's start with Nico's team because they're the biggest story, I think, right now. Maybe TJ Tahi making a CPL record, but that's just because it's a record. Other than that, York, obviously the biggest story. They've now broken 3 unbeaten streaks in the league in a row with 3 big wins. One against you guys last week, one against Forge midweek, and then Halifax the week before. It's been a very, very impressive run for the United side from York.
There's not enough you can say about how impressive it is. It's their first 3 victories in a row in club history.
Yep.
They won 2 of those away from home.
Yep.
2 of those were against arguably the 2 most consistent and perennial powerhouses, and I'm doing air quotes for the people that don't watch this and are listening on radio, teams in the CPL in Cavalry and Forge. And they did it playing their style. They're very, very good defensively.
Yep.
It's so hard to get inside their box. When they do, Nico has stood on his head a couple times and made those big saves that you hope your goalie is going to make to keep you in the game. And then there's been some wonder strikes. And
that one against Forge from Brem. Oh my goodness.
My God. And I remember after the game against us, Nico and I were talking, and I told him, I'm like, this guy is a baller. Like the way that I perceived him on the field when I was playing against him, I'm like, this guy can control your midfield, and Nash needs to really build around him. And then the next game he goes out and scores that banger in the 94th minute. I'm like, come on, this is crazy,
man. I wasn't watching the game live because I was watching the TFC match. I was going to watch the York game back Thursday, and I did end up watching it back. But I saw that going all over social media, and everyone's like, what a strike. I'm like, what happened? And then you see the video, it's like, oh, yeah, that's a pretty good shot. Holy moly. It's been really impressive to see them come together.
For sure. And it seems like that own goals and far shots is the only way to beat Tristan Henry these days. So I think I'm going to be shooting from half today, and I'll probably score 4 or 5 goals on Tristan Henry.
Who knows?
But if I try to do a breakaway, he's saving it every time.
Yeah.
So
it's true, but it's a weird thing to say. That seems to be the only way that people have scored recently against him. So but back to York. I want to get into this conversation as well. Mm-hmm. Going into the season, I had a chance to do a day of training with them, right? And I got to see them train live. I was looking at this roster, and it was vastly improved from last year. I think we can both agree on that. I think anyone who looks at this roster can say that it was vastly improved from last year. You had your attacking options. Babuli was going to be there for a full season. Ozazi coming off his incredible season last year. Brian Wright joining the fold, who has been a CPL stronghold, consistently playing in the league for the last few years. The attack you weren't worried about. It's always been the defense. They go out, they bring in Jonathan Grant to help secure that back line. You have Parrish G for the full year as well. Roger Thompson getting healthy, Taz Murtakudis playing great. You bring in some even more players into that midfield. Brem, you have Elijah Adekugbe, you have Baldissimo, Gagne Laparé, right?
Yeah.
They solidified that middle of the park, the center defensive mid role, the center mid role, and the center backs. And it's been such a difference maker. And you add in the fact that they have, in my opinion, right now, probably the best keeper in the league, but if not, he's one of the top 3 keepers in the league, the way he's playing, Nico. That defense becomes that much better. And that was the biggest concern for York, and it has been the biggest concern for York for years, is that their defense doesn't hold up well across the season. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case this year, and it's showing, and that's why they're currently in 3rd and on a 3-game win streak.
Yeah, and on paper, I think York has one of the strongest teams, and it's been just bad luck after bad luck in terms of injuries, keeping these players off the field and having to force Nashi to play different players in different positions.
Yeah.
Nico, in my opinion, and I'm not saying this because he's my best buddy, but he's always been one of the top goalies in terms of shot stopping.
Top
in the
3
league,
every single season he's been a starter.
Yeah, the reason he doesn't get more media and more recognition is I don't think he passes the eye test as like other players like Ducci and Ingham and Henry do. And just that's just Nico. I make fun of him all the time. He just looks like an awkward, lanky guy. He makes these dramatic movements, and I don't think I pass the eye test in terms of like when I run compared to like a Manny Aparicio and stuff like that. But we're just a bunch of weirdos playing soccer, but we're doing it effectively. And Nico has been doing it since day one, and I think that's why Tommy brought him into Cavs in 2019, because he noticed that. He noticed the talent that was there, even though some people couldn't see it. So I'm glad he's not on the show, because he'd be just blushing like crazy and just gloating. So I would never compliment him as much if he was on the show with us right now.
I'd say that he'd deny whatever we say. You know that, right? Like, I'm not. Come on, guys. Like, no.
Come on. And their defense. To be honest, with Roger Thompson, I know he's a great player, but I don't even see him as having to be on the field to keep York consistently performing, because they've proven with Paris. I would say Paris and Taz even as that center back duo that they can get the job done. Paris is an incredibly intelligent player, and he's also very athletic. I was trying to sprint past him in our game in the very first minute.
It's not going to happen very easily.
It didn't work. He caught up to me, went out for a corner, but it didn't work. So if these players can stay healthy and play the way that they've been playing and just believe in their system, not get frustrated if maybe they don't have a lot of the ball, and enjoy the counterattack way, like kind of like Ottawa did last year, they can make a run. Yeah, for sure.
100%. And you mentioned that they don't really need Raj. They don't. He's now like an accessory piece almost for this roster, which makes them even more dangerous, because you can pull him off the bench and move Paris to a wingback position or into the center defensive mid-role if you want to have more speed going forward. That's how dangerous this squad becomes, because they brought in all of this top-quality depth. Right? And that's what Cavs have done consistently since the league has started. You guys always bring in strong depth players to just build out the roster. Forge does the same thing. They're always bringing strong depth pieces. They might not be starters, or they might push a starter to the bench. Either way, the depth is always so strong, and that's what separates the good teams from the great teams. The great teams are always those deep teams that bring in top quality players year after year after year, right? And I think that's the problem that Ottawa is facing a little bit this year, is that last year they had such a deep squad, and they maybe overperformed, but they lost a few of those guys that made their squad so deep, and they didn't replace them with the same quality of player. And I think that's where they're seeing some problems this year.
Completely agree. I said it. I've been saying it since last year, and Nate and Nico and I talk a lot, and I've said it to Nate, that Ottawa, because of the way that they play, that last year they had to be incredibly clinical in front of net and when they got their chances, and they were.
Yeah.
With Balu Tabla, who else? Malcolm Shaw, Dos Santos.
Right when he was on the pitch too, he did what he needed to.
Exactly. So those four got the goals at the most important times for Ottawa last year, and that got them in the first place. They've lost 3 of those players, and I don't think they've replaced them with as high caliber players as they thought they were going to. With Salter and who else? Who else is there that? Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we can't even think of them.
I can't even think off the top of my head the guys that they replaced those guys with, other than Salter. And to his credit, Salter has looked good in matches this year, but you replace one with you're taking out 3. It's not good enough.
And Salter isn't that type of player.
No.
Salter would do better on a forward or on Cavs that try to keep the ball, try to hold up their striker, not try to transition from their box to the other box in 5 seconds. When has he ever proven to be a counter-attacking forward?
Never.
In this league?
It's not his role. That's not what he's good at.
Yeah, it was a strange. Yeah, I wouldn't do well in Ottawa either. My legs would give out after 5 minutes because I'm trying to sprint up and try to score a goal and then sprint back to defend.
Yep.
It doesn't work for every player, and you see that now because now the games that they were winning last year or tying, they're losing because they can't find these goals. Forge was an unfortunate result for Ottawa.
Yeah.
They did have a lot of chances. I'll give it to them. But these are the things that we're talking about. They're not being clinical, and they're going to give up a lot of possession, which in turn turns into a lot of chances for the team you're playing against. And Forge made them regret that in the end.
Exactly. And I think we've hit on the 2 biggest storylines of the season so far. York's play of late and Atletico Ottawa's play across the season. That's just this season right now. We could also talk about Valor's consistent play. We can talk about the fact that you guys in Calgary have 1 win, and yet I think you've played far better than that, just unfortunate results. We can talk about Pacific's ridiculous goal-scoring ability. But these are the 2 biggest stories, is York and Ottawa right now, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
As an outsider, maybe not as a player, but as an outsider, that's what I'm watching, and that's what I'm seeing as the 2 storylines.
Agreed. And the game coming up today, I think it's today, Ottawa-Halifax, that is a make or break game for either team.
I was going to say for both sides.
Yeah, for either team. Like the storyline just grows exponentially for whoever doesn't win today.
Yep.
And if they both tie, that's probably who do you think it's worse for if they both tie?
Ottawa.
You think it's worse for Ottawa?
I think it's worse for Halifax.
Ottawa. Okay, because Halifax still goes winless then. At least
still
Ottawa
goes winless, but they're still getting results. Like they have 6 draws out of 7 matches. They're still getting points somehow, right? Ottawa only has points in 3 of 7 matches. You know what I mean? So right. Halifax is at least in most of their games. Ottawa, it hasn't been. And that's the biggest concern for me. They're just not there. They're not involved in a lot of the games. Yeah,
and this is a big one. And we talked about this it was right after the Forge Ottawa game. Ollie Bassett goes to Twitter and apologizes to his fans. And in my opinion, I never like when a player does that because you should be showing your fans how much you want it on the field, not in a small 200-word paragraph to apologize. So this is a big game for Ottawa in terms of showing their fans what Ollie meant in that tweet.
Yeah.
So I think you see a desperate game from both sides today.
Agreed. I think it's going to be a hard-fought match, and it's going to be one that both come out flying because they both know that they need it. We got to take one more break. On the other side, it's time for predictions. Nico sent us his, so we got them. We'll give you those after the break. You're listening to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Welcome back to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Nick McVicar, Sergio Camargo holding it down for you. Nico on a plane, but don't worry. It is time for predictions, folks. 12 matches last week. I was the only one to predict all 12, obviously, because you guys play in some of them. But I went 4-8. Nico, 4-6. Serge, 7-4 for your week. You started off 4-0. You were flying high. You texted us, and then it all fell apart for you.
I jinxed myself in those last couple of games, but that's fine.
But overall now, I'm sitting at 33-55. Nico's 29-52, and you are 16-20 on the season. And sorry, I'm 33-53, not 55. I just can't write neatly. So, anyways, we got a few matches this week. Nico sent us his picks, so let's get right to those.
I hate that you guys are making me do this because everyone in the airport is staring at me. But picks of the week, Footy First fans. Minnesota TFC is our game of the week. So, Philadelphia, Montreal, I got a draw. Vancouver, Kansas City, I got a win. Cavs Forge, classic draw there. Atletico, Halifax, at home Atletico. Atletico's going to take the win. TFC, Minnesota, I'm going a 1-1 draw. Those are my picks. Lock them in. Good luck, boys.
So there you have it. Nico from the airport giving us his picks and getting stared at by fans all over. So there you go. You mentioned it. We have 7 games this week. Serge, let's get right into it. We don't have a whole lot of time, so we got to fly through these. Philly, Montreal. Who do you got?
Philadelphia.
I'm on the same boat. I think this is Philly's game to lose. Vancouver Whitecaps at home against Sporting KC.
Home record, Whitecaps.
Okay, so you and me are just going even on this one. Next game is your game, so I'm going to quickly go through this. Cavs, Forge. I'm going to take Forge in this one, and this is actually testing a theory. It's not picking against you. It's testing a theory, because every time I pick you guys in a game that you're playing by yourselves, you lose, and every time I pick against you, you win. So I'm taking Cavs, or I'm taking Forge, hoping that Cavs win.
Thank you.
Ottawa, Halifax.
Tie.
I'm going to take Halifax. I don't like that because it's a home game for Ottawa, but I'm gonna just.
But they've been terrible at home.
They've been terrible most of the year. So there you go. Valor at home against York tomorrow.
Tie.
I'm going to take the draw in this one as well. And then York at home against Atletico.
York.
I'm taking York as well. And then last game of the week, Minnesota hosting TFC. Give me a score as well.
Let's do 2-1 TFC.
2-1 TFC. All right. I'm going 1-0. I'm going 1-0 Minnesota.
And what did Nico go? I didn't hear it.
Nico, he took...
I think it was a draw.
He took a draw 1-1. Draw 1-1.
Okay.
That's what it was.
Okay.
Sorry. You have me confused. I don't have to worry about your picks usually. I write them down and I would worry about them later, but I didn't have to write his down because he wasn't here. But that will do it for us here on Footy First. Before we go, we do have another giveaway, and this time we're looking at the match against Nashville on June 10th. So we will put our Instagram post up. You're going to have to make sure you follow us at Footy First Show, like the post, and tell us who you would bring to the game, as we want to send you and a friend to the game next Saturday against Nashville SC at BMO Field. So make sure you check out our Instagram story for that at Footy First. Check us out on Twitter at Footy First Show as well. And don't forget to watch the YouTube channel where you can see our predictions and the entire episode. For Sergio Camargo, I'm Nick McVicar. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.